Obviously, I'm here because we have the opportunity to go chase championships on the football field.
It's just the same old show, hiring a search firm to hire you, buddy. It's just, I'm done with it.
There's Coach Boom.
You are listening to The Review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Review. It's the Online Sports Guys College Football Podcast. Yep, we took a week off last week. And since we're in the off season, I might as well just get this out of the way. We're going to probably come to you every other week, bi-weekly, twice a month, whatever you want to call it. Just because that way we're not overwhelming you with boring stuff and trying to scrounge up content where there ain't no content. In case you're wondering, yes, we are the Online Sports Guys. He is OSG Nelson. He is OSG J-Dub. I am OSG Phil. Missing today, John Wilkerson, who has a previous engagement with his daughter who is currently celebrating her birthday.
Yes. The best kind of assignment to be
excused absence.
Yes. That is a perfectly acceptable absence. Me coming to you from the new location of the satellite office. We have moved. We have been moving all weekend. The house is in somewhat of disarray. My laptop is currently sitting on top of a box while I sit on the floor recording this. And guys, while we were away for the last 2 weeks, a few things happening, and might as well start with the coaching carousel. We ended the last episode talking about the University of Tennessee, and the University of Tennessee now has a head football coach. His name, Josh Heupel.
And you know, being the Tennessee fan of the group, I will have to say I was, we called Heupel as one of the choices coming in. It was on Heupel and Leopold.
Leopold.
Talked about. Leopold. But I can tell you from all the stuff, all the scuttlebutt I'm hearing out of Knoxville, Heupel is actually quietly getting good reviews in Vol Nation.
Fans right now are pretty mixed. Some want to wait and see. Some don't like the hire at all. And some think that it's going to be entertaining and fun to see a guy light the scoreboard up in Neyland Stadium.
I know that he just at practice this week, he played dodgeball with his players and had a really good time. And he's a very, I guess, bare bones kind of coach. He's not very flashy, hasn't been a whole lot of fanfare, but I'm liking what I'm seeing out of Heupel. I just wish he'd bring coaches that weren't from UCF with him to Tennessee. But, Winky's gone. T. Martin's probably gone. Kevin Steele's going to be gone.
$900,000 for 3 weeks worth of work.
You can't beat that. So we'll see how that goes. But Danny White, I got to trust him. We'll see how it goes. But so far, Heupel is living up to the hype, bump in Knoxville.
So I guess it would be HUE living up to the HUE or HEUP living up to the hype.
Live up the hype. Yep.
HE living up to the HEUP.
And like we said in the last show we had, it's going to be a hard sell to Vol Nation. He's not a Hugh Freeze. He's not a big name. There was some rumor that Lane Kiffin would come back, and I was going to slip my throat if that was going to happen. But I think if you look at his numbers, what he did in Oklahoma, what he did at Mizzou with Drew Lock, what he did at UCF. He's going to bring the air raid offense to Knoxville. That's not something that school is used to at all, period.
John, the question to the floor, though, will the Volunteers have the patience? Because this isn't just an overnight rebuilding job. You're talking about 3, 4, maybe 5 years before, if everything falls into place and some good recruiting classes, before you're going to see some real results there. Because they're that far behind Georgia and Florida right now, and it's not close.
No, and that's the big question: is how much patience is he going to get with this purge of the old guard and bringing in Danny White, bringing in Josh Heupel? We've seen in other locations where you're looking at 2, maybe 3 years because of the instant results that are required. All you have to sit there is mention Tyrone Willingham at Notre Dame. as an example for something like that. So
insert lower tier SEC coach here.
True. And so, I, being the resident pessimist on the show, would lean toward the answer being no, just because of what we've seen the last handful of years and alums being what they are and trying to seize opportunities coming out of a pandemic economy. But no, I'm leaning toward no. I would just make sure that money is guaranteed and that you can get as much of it as humanly possible once you are dismissed.
See, and this is not me being a Tennessee fanly in this way. This is just from what I've heard. I'm going to lean yes, because when Donnie Plowman, Chancellor, reached out and hired Danny White, he was asking for, I need patience. Rome wasn't built in a day. I need patience to do this my way. And that's what he was assured. Granted, assured's it's almost like fairy dust, sure, have all the time you need. Really, he started, as soon as he accepted the job, his clock started.
He's on the clock.
But I think that they're going to give him at least 3 years. And if nothing's happened, if we still haven't beaten Alabama, if we still haven't beaten Georgia, if we still haven't beaten Vanderbilt, consistently in those times, or Tennessee being their state, then yeah, I think his seat's going to get hot very quickly.
Interesting. Well, here's a question for you while we're on the topic.
Yes.
I'm sorry for not bringing this up in the pre-show,
Yeah.
but who goes to UCF to replace Heupel? That's not a bad job.
Ooh.
I mean, there are a couple of names out there. Was it Alex Golish is a name that's potentially his successor. You also have what's his face? Let me think. So Jeff Libby. I think Jeff Libby might be a name at UCF. But I mean, I agree with you, Phil. That's a prime spot for a coach to come in and take the reins. And, Heupel really did put some good stuff there. So did Danny White.
Yeah, UCF's not a bad program. You're talking about one of the better AAC teams, a team that played in the Pick Six. Hi, Maggie. Within the last couple of years, it's a pretty good job.
Yeah. Okay. So, but let me go back to the previous.
They got to hire an athletic director too.
This is true.
Yeah. So, but let me go back to the previous question that you had. Apparently, Heupel is already starting to ruffle feathers when it comes to recruiting. Oxford, Alabama's Rock Taylor, wide receiver, tight end, was a longtime Tennessee commit, signed with Memphis on National Signing Day after the Vols' new staff pulled his offer.
Yeah.
According to his high school coach.
I read that.
Yep.
Yeah. Blake Reed, the running back coach at New Caney in Texas, said Heupel did the same thing with one of his players when he was at UCF. And so he is not winning any folks over when it comes to his time at UCF. And now that he's in the SEC, you're starting to see this happen all over again as a repeat to his coaching and recruiting behavior. Well,
let me play devil's advocate here. That person who had an offer, that was from the Jeremy Pruitt era.
Right.
So apparently, I gotta give some credit to Heupel saying, yeah, you're not the kind of player I want. Therefore, he's got a limited number of scholarships. He's probably going to be on NCAA violations here shortly. He's probably trying to, to conserve what he's got before he just randomly goes out. And so I don't have a problem with that. Being a scholarship athlete myself, I know that it's the game, right? It's a business. And, at least a kid found a place to go in Memphis. Memphis is a good program, but I kind of don't see a problem with that. Maybe I'm of a different era, but I just think, why bring in somebody that's not your recruit?
Understood.
Thought.
Yeah.
While we're on the topic of coaching carousel, a few other kind of news and notes here. One of the guys who was mentioned often for the Tennessee job, Clemson offensive coordinator Tony Elliott, he decided to stay in Clemson, and they paid the man. That's right.
Paid a man.
$2 million.
Paid a man.
See, he was always going to be too expensive for Tennessee. Always. That's insane amount of money to get for an offensive coordinator.
It is, but that's what the Clemsons and the Alabamas and of the world do.
And that's why no one can compete with them.
Yeah. You're talking about Clemson now with him. They just hired former all-star running back C.J. Spiller as an assistant coach as well, which was interesting.
Yeah.
But you have programs they do that. You saw Alabama's brought in Doug Marrone to coach the line, and who was the other coach that they brought in?
Oh, Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, that's right, Bill O'Brien to run the offense. That cost a couple bucks.
Well,
Just a little bit.
But come on, I mean, they're made of money, and right now when you're number one and you're number one in the ladder, everybody's going to come after you.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and then Georgia this week announced that they will have a new defensive analyst, former South Carolina head coach, Coach Boom Muschamp.
$300,000 a year to be an analyst.
That's one guy you do not want to lip read on.
Yes, for a half an hour or whatever he'll give you.
And I don't understand. I mean, this is a quality control coach position, right? Where you just like, what did they just create this position for Muschamp? I know, and his son's connected to the program, isn't he? Isn't Jackson part of the program?
I mean, but at the same time, I mean,
Muschamp was a grad, but
yeah,
true.
But think about it this way. I mean, I think probably what you're trying to do is you're making sure that the buyout that you can still get all of the buyout from South Carolina that you can get. And so you have to look at the wording of your contract to make sure that as an analyst, you're not an assistant coach.
Right.
And so you're probably looking at the language in your contract and your buyout to make sure that you can be one thing and not another.
And didn't they do the same thing with Butch Jones at Alabama? Wasn't he? Like a quality control thing there?
Yeah, they've had several coaches come in there. That's how Steve Sarkisian started his time at Alabama, was as an offensive quality control analyst.
Yeah. And you see Sarkisian went to Texas, Butch went to Arkansas State. So
Sarkisian took over the offense when Lane Kiffin left for a bowl game, then ended up with the Atlanta Falcons head coaching job, or offensive coordinator job, and then got bounced from there and landed back at Alabama as the offensive coordinator, and now is in Texas.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the Nick Saban school of coaching right there.
Yeah, the resurrection programs, the coaching camp.
The Nick Saban Coach Rehabilitation Clinic is the premier coach rescue service in the country.
But that's how it works.
Oh, yeah.
I fully expect to see Muschamp within the next year or two end up with a job too, and it's insurance if or when somebody comes and plucks current Georgia defensive coordinator Dan Lanning out.
No question.
Yeah. And I think Muschamp is not long for the world as just an analyst. He'll get a head coaching job somewhere else. Yeah. Or he might have to get a coordinator job first, but he'll find somewhere else. He'll land somewhere.
He's been kind of average in both of his stops. I'm not sure that that's going to come so quickly.
See, and that's
I could see somebody like Lanning get a head coaching job before Muschamp did.
Well, and the thing that you look at is that I think that we come across the notion that there are folks who are just good number twos, and they're just not good number ones.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that what you're looking at is a case in Will Muschamp, who is someone who is a tremendous number two, just not a good number one.
And I would say the same thing about Jeremy Pruitt. Jeremy Pruitt is a great defensive coordinator. He's a great defensive mind. But when you put him in control of the whole shebang, he was outclassed, outgunned, and outmanned from day one.
Yeah, Pruitt hasn't exactly left a wake of friends behind him in the wash either.
No, he flamed out in
not just in Tennessee, but when he was in Georgia and Alabama and Florida State. And
he has a tendency to flame out of epic proportions. Yeah, he didn't make many friends.
I lost track of where we were supposed to be.
But I mean, it's with Jeremy Pruitt not winning any friends, Muschamp being a number two, coming in with an analyst gig, it's just you're going to see this. And I think that in the Southeastern Conference, I think you're going to see a lot more of this. I think that Alabama has started this trend with the reclamation camp, and then you bring in other assistants.
It's the Nick Saban Coaching Rehabilitation Clinic.
Yeah, and so you're going to have that in different forms because I think that you see schools see what's going on in Tuscaloosa, and they can bring in analysts, in quotation marks, to help out in that vein. And I think you're going to see more schools do this because of the level of success that you see in Tuscaloosa.
Yep.
Should mention too. I don't think we ever really talked about this on a previous episode, but Alabama lost their running backs coach Charles Huff because he was named the new head coach at Marshall a few weeks back.
Yep.
Totally forgot about that one.
That's a good move for him.
It's a great move for him. Marshall's a great program, a great jumping on program to get yourself established.
Yep. Thundering Herd.
Interesting note here. Alabama has now had 15 members of the 2020 coaching staff that have been hired elsewhere. 5 coaches, on-field coaches, seven analysts.
7 analysts.
And 3 others. And it's a virtual who's who of coaching rehabilitation jobs. Not only Sarkisian, who we talked about, but former Rutgers head coach Kyle Flood was the offensive line coach. Now is the offensive coordinator at the University of Texas.
Okay. Yep. Sorry to hear that, Texas.
Who we all know landed at Arkansas State.
Brick by brick.
Major Applewhite. There's a name from the past.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that he was an analyst at Alabama as well? He's now the offensive coordinator at South Alabama.
Who hasn't been an analyst at Alabama? I think is probably the bigger question.
Mike Stoops, former Arizona head coach, another analyst, now the defensive coordinator at Florida Atlantic.
So you're saying this is a trend?
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
Last but not least, Charlie Strong.
Ooh.
Analyst. Now the Jacksonville Jaguars assistant head coach / linebacker coach for Urban Meyer.
Because of course he is.
Yep. And
make sure that you get paid. That's all I can say.
And before we go any further, something just popped in my head about, the coaching carousel and Heupel not making any recruiting friends. We have to also talk about the people that have left Tennessee. Henry To'o, Eric Gray, and Wanye Morris.
When you lose a kicker,
the kicker.
Portaling. You lose Maglia.
He's the best kicker in Tennessee history, and he just left. But we got the kid from USC.
Wait. He's better than Fuad Reves
and any of the Colquitts.
I'm just saying his numbers are pretty freaking consistent to being up there. So Maglia was almost money. You what?
That's a pretty high bar.
I like Brent. I'm mad he's gone. When you lose a kicker to the portal, you got to think about that. But you got to think, Heupel's behind the 8 ball already there too. So your number 1 linebacker, your number 1 running back, your number 1 kicker, one of your number 1 offensive linemen gone like that. And Lincoln Riley's one. I'll take it.
It's just, have you
ever seen a kicker go to the portal before?
Yeah.
But the mere fact that with all of the other individuals that portaled out of Knoxville, and then all of a sudden your kicker portals too, I think that just speaks volumes as to what in the wide world of sports isn't going on right now.
I'm just fascinated with the whole idea that Saban's losing 15 members of his staff, and he just reloads.
If you had the chance to go, wouldn't you go? What are you going to say no to Nick Saban and out in the University of Alabama and the chance to win a ring?
It's just absolutely. But to think about it, if you're running a business and you lose 15 people in the span of 2 months?
Sure.
And then you have to replace them and integrate them with your team, your program, and how you do business. You basically, with kids that are there only on a temporary basis as well, they're there for 4 or 5 years max.
Right.
But you got to look at this thing too. You lose 15 assistants or 15 quality control analysts. How many people do you have on staff?
Yeah.
If you lose 15 and not be a problem, you have like 75 coaches on the sidelines?
Probably.
That's the other question. It seems like Alabama has more analysts than some of the smaller programs have actual on-field coaches.
Analysts.
Jiminy Christmas.
Analysts. Yes.
And you think about it, if you're going to differentiate yourself and be that much better than everybody else in Division I, if you've got more sets of eyes, particularly experienced head coaches that are sitting there as game analysts for you, you got 10 of those guys sitting there watching your game film and breaking it down for you.
Who have experience in the National Football League.
Yep.
that's a huge advantage that most schools can't take advantage of.
So I would look at it as a you problem. So, you know, if Alabama wants to spend that kind of money,
But it's not just them.
And so, but that's what I'm saying. Any school that wants to make this kind of capital investment in this business, and that is what college football is. It is a business.
Absolutely.
You invest in a business so a business can succeed. You continue to invest so it can continue to succeed. So what you're seeing is this Fortune 500 company out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, continually doing what it takes to be ahead of the curve with other businesses that are in the same business.
Yep.
That other businesses in the same business.
That's what they are. I mean, other. So fine, I'll change my verb. Other universities in the same business. How about that?
Yeah, that's not a bad one. Who is it that's building the $91 million athletic facility? Was it Auburn?
That is correct.
Yes.
That is the boss's alma mater, and I believe that is all private funds. It has nothing to do with the university itself investing in it.
Yeah, it's all coming from donors.
Hire a head coach. Here's $75 million or however much money that Harsin made. Hire a head coach. Oh, by the way, let's drop another $90 million so we have the most fanciest of fancy athletic facilities. $91 million just to house the freaking football team.
Well, and you know what? You get your own recording. They have a recording studio in there.
Of course they do. Do they have their own record label?
Wouldn't surprise me if they came up with one. But I mean, what you're doing is you're trying to make it with the amenities that will bring in the. It's not a Gen Zer, but whatever they want to call the 2000 the kids that are born on this end of 2000. So. No, and what you're doing is you're catering to that demo. You're catering to that age group, and it's like, okay, what can I do to keep you engaged and bring you here? And if part of that just happens to be a recording studio as a part of the gig, then why not?
J-Dub, you're talking about an athletic facility they're spending more money on that than some teams' stadiums are worth.
Well, like I said, but the university's not spending the money, though. I mean, the money's coming from private donors.
Oh, I know that.
It's there, but I mean, if you have it, why not build it? I mean, I've seen the plans for this place. It's absolutely gorgeous. And if I was an athlete, that would be a recruiting tool for me just right there to be able to have access to that building. It's just gorgeous. And, I think kudos for Auburn to be able to have the ability to do it. I think, new head coach, new facilities, why not?
It's absolutely fascinating to me with all the warnings and crying that they're going to lose all this money in the pandemic season of 2020 because no fans can come to the games and this, that, and the other. Yet the big boys just keep spending more money.
Well, they find more. They find more money. They themselves are not spending it. They have individuals who are investing in them.
The boosters.
It's almost like an athletic hedge fund, if you want to call it that.
There were Big Ten teams that were cutting budgets and laying people off.
If you had the opportunity, all right. So let's go ahead and pose the question. If you had the chance, if you were an athletic hedge fund guy, if we just went ahead and phrased it like this, if you were an athletic investor, and you had the chance,
if I was an athletic hedge fund guy, I would download the Robinhood app. But that's
GameStop.
True. So if you were athletic investor, and you had the chance,
or an athletic supporter.
True, but if you can't be an athlete, be an athletic supporter. Thank you, Eve Arden.
Yep.
If you had the chance to invest in one of the following two businesses, which one would you invest in? A business that is in the top of its groupings when it comes to its own business and within its own peers, gets an incredible amount of revenue from an outside source, investing in you every single year so your product can be seen by more folks, where you're reasonably competitive. You have years where you're up there with, if you're one of in a business of 140, that there are some years where, you're a top 20 business. If there are 140 branches like yours, if you're a top 20 branch in your business, you have that opportunity. Or you can be in a conference or a region, let's say, where you're not a top 20 and you're not all that great. You're maybe like 75 to 100. If you had the chance to invest as an athletic investor in a top 20 branch or a number 75 branch out of 140, which one would you go to? Would you invest in an Auburn, or would you invest in a Maryland or a Nebraska? Where would you invest these days? You're going to invest in those branches of the business that are the most successful. And right now, the ones that bring in the most revenue outside of what you're bringing in yourself is the Southeastern Conference. And so I understand the idea of wanting to invest in those branches of your business that are the most successful financially.
If I'm a jockstrap, I'm wanting to invest in the one that gets the most facial recognition in the town or metro area that I live in.
And say hello to Auburn, Alabama. I mean, the university. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think as an athlete, and even as someone who is a fan of the SEC, I'm like, that the facility is gorgeous. And if I had the money and if I was unaffiliated to a university, I would give it to Auburn. I mean, their basketball program is doing well. Football program has had its moments, and as a whole, it's got lots of sports that are competitive in the SEC. So I think if you're going to invest in a university, like Nelson says, it's going to be something like Auburn. Like I would not touch Maryland with a 10-foot pole.
Speaking of money, in the second half of the show, guys, we're going to talk about name and the NIL legislation that's bouncing around, and some other exciting topics here in the second half of the review.
Before we split, one thing I wanted to talk about in coaching carousel that I just remembered. Since my Kansas, I got to bring my Jayhawks into this. Jayhawks lost Brent Dearman, offensive coordinator, to go to Middle Tennessee State, but they hired a former Tennessee guy, Mike DeBoard from Michigan, to be their new OC. So we'll see if Mike can do better at Kansas than he did at Tennessee.
Who dis?
Mike DeBoard.
Who?
Exactly. That's my point. but Les Miles went up getting it. So I have a Tennessee contact and my Kansas contact now. So that's really the only reason I wanted to bring that up.
All righty then.
They still suck. It's okay.
Yep, now I'm definitely throwing a break. Stick around, guys, for the second half. We've got one more half of the show to go. You are listening to the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
The OSG app is up and running on your Android or iPhone. Install the OSG app and listen to our podcast from college football, soccer, and lacrosse. What are you waiting for? Download the OSG app today.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man, and I'm saying, woo!
Hello, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. You have made it to the second half of the review. It's the OSG Sports College Football Podcast, and let's get the obligatory marketing stuff out of the way. You can check us out on social media. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at OSG Sports. Of course, you can find J-Dub at OSG J-Dub, John at OSG Nelson, me at OSG Phil, and we have a phone app, as you can see by John flashing it up into the field of view if you are watching us at home. If you're listening, you'll have to take my word for it. John's holding the phone and sticking it in front of his computer camera. Guys, we said we'd talk about name, image, and likeness, but I want to get to something else a little more timely first before we get to that. And that's that pretty much the entire Division I or the Football Bowl subdivision has announced their schedules. The schedules are out, a full slate of games. Everybody's playing their conference games plus their extra bonus games.
Yep.
back to normal, so to speak. And we've also got a slew of schools have already announced the dates for their spring games. Things seem to be starting to kind of turn back to normal here. Do you think we're going to actually get that happening?
Jury's still out. I mean, we'll see. I mean, North Carolina up here, we haven't had football yet. Football starts in a couple of weeks. We had some issues with the colleges up here with COVID. I think vaccinations maybe will take a play. You know, people getting it, you know, might help that. I'm wishful thinking. I'm the hopeful optimist of the group. I want to have everything back to normal because, you know, that's makes me feel good to have a full slate of games. When we had football to talk about, it made us feel good. But yeah, I think they're planning for normal, but prepared to backtrack. I really hope they do, though. I really hope we can get back to some semblance of normalcy.
There's some pretty killer games out there, John. Georgia Clemson to kick off the season.
Alabama, Miami.
Well, and to J-Dub's point, I think that we're going to be growing into a college football schedule. I think that when you have spring games, you're probably going to have them like you did last year. You might have socially distanced facilities like we had in the Southeastern Conference, where you had limited capacities, social distancing, those kinds of things, masks that are mandatory on campus, those kinds of things. So I don't think that you're going to have 100% capacity wherever you're going to see a spring game right out of the blocks. I think it'll be a percentage, and you'll see the things that were in play, all the protocols that were in play during football season applied to what we're going to be looking at for spring games. I know that for anyone who has been listening to Dr. Fauci and anyone associated with the vaccines, the CDC and all of that, they're looking at, you know, late summer, early fall. You're looking at July before we can feel more comfortable about being in social situations, those kinds of things. And so July gets you into August, which gets you into training camp, which gets you that much closer to your games. And so just look for the same things that we saw, I think, with spring games in these locations as you're leaning into a schedule, and the hope that you're going to have these full schedules coming out of the blocks.
I mean, look at week one here, the SEC for the SEC schools. You're talking about Alabama and Miami kicking off in Atlanta, the Georgia Clemson games in Charlotte, LSU at UCLA.
Oh.
Yep.
A couple of years ago, I would have been all for that one, but this upcoming season, I'm like, it's a road trip.
But it's two big names,
and they're playing in the Rose Bowl, which is awesome.
But once again, you're going to get social distancing, you know, and so I don't necessarily think you're going to get 108,000 folks. You're going to get a lot of folks traveling from Baton Rouge. I don't think you're going to get 100,000 folks there watching that game. I think that it'll probably be half of that.
Yeah, and then, you know, OSG inside joke, Bowling Green is traveling to Tennessee to take on Volunteers. So there'll be no hiding behind trash cans at this particular game.
You can't hide behind a trash can when Bowling Green and Tennessee get together.
Maybe one show we'll tell you that story again.
Well, we have to be careful in the statute of limitations.
Absolutely. I'm still up for potential litigation. So no, I'm just kidding. There's some interesting games in the Big Ten as well. Like, Ohio State, Minnesota, just kick off I think that'll be, and it's in Minnesota. So I think that might be a good game to start the season off with.
Yeah, and speaking with Office HD here, the boss is already looking forward to Auburn and Penn State on September 18th in State College. And then in the 2022 season, Penn State will be coming to Auburn. So you're going to get that home and home squared away. Yeah. And the plans are already being looked at, trying to figure out Google Maps and planning and hotels and stays and flights and all that kind of stuff. So it is on the board.
Interesting, too, Illinois and Nebraska scheduled to play in Ireland this coming fall.
Yep.
Well, that one, keep an eye on that because of protocols and COVID-19, because, you know, are they going to allow special dispensation for, you know, Americans to come over, do their thing, play a college football game, and go out without quarantine? So keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, interesting stuff there. Something to look forward to, at least right now. And hopefully, like you had said, with the vaccinations kind of starting to pick up, hopefully we'll get far enough down the road that we'll have some people in the stands to watch games. The other topic we wanted to hit on here in the second half of the show, and this is kind of a little bit of inside baseball, so to speak, and that's a bill introduced this week that the College Athlete Economic Freedom Act that would allow college athletes to make money off their name, image, and likeness with the fewest restrictions possible. And this comes in the heel of last year, the NCAA, or actually last month in January, it's not last year, kind of put the kibosh on the pending initial name, image, and likeness legislation because of some antitrust concerns. So this is just kind of a rewording of that a little bit.
Uh-huh.
The NCAA legislation hopefully going to be in place by August 1, according to some reports. It's interesting because the new updated bill by Senator Murphy from Connecticut would make it a federal right for the college athletes to actually be entitled to that money. And that recruits.
I wasn't a superstar at Wake Forest, so this never would have been an issue for me. But I don't, I'm just torn on how I really feel about, if you were like a Johnny Manziel or, all the people who actually made money off of college, I mean, as an NCAA athlete, if you're a scholarship athlete, you're not allowed to have a job. Lots of regulations with that. So, I mean, got to make money somehow. But I'm just torn. I don't know if it should be a federal right for an athlete to be able to make money on his name, image, or likeness. But I don't know. I'm torn with this.
Well, but it's the same thing it's the same rule that comes into play if somebody took our name, image, or likeness and put it into a video game and sold that video game and profited because of it. We should be entitled to a share of that. And it's not really any difference there. I mean, if you were still on the Wake Forest roster, even if you weren't playing and they had the entire Wake Forest roster on EA Sports College Football, you should be allowed to get a cut of that. Why not?
Which I'm happy that they're bringing the game back, by the way.
But
yes.
It goes to the point.
Like I said, I can see both sides of it. I mean, I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm just saying that, I'm not very rabidly for it either. It's like, yeah.
If a college is marketing a player's jersey in the bookstore and they have, 5,000 jerseys from player X that they're selling at $75 each, why should the player not get a cut of that?
Oh, absolutely he should. But, I think that when you're trying to come up with the federal legislation, you have to be careful with the wording and the implementation of it. And I think that's what you need to keep an eye on when it comes to anything like this involving NIL. And for me, but once again, if someone like J-Dub is on a roster at any Division I institution, the amount of money that he would be getting, no offense, J-Dub, as an offensive lineman versus anyone at a skill position or a number one draft pick, that's going to be disproportionate.
Yep.
And so I think that everyone should be eligible to pursue NIL as best they can, but you have to be careful how it's implemented in the grand overall, just because, you can't sit there and mandate that the pot that is this going into a centralized pot where everyone is going to have to sit there and say, okay, well, all of the money for all the players at this Division I institution where J-Dub is playing get X amount of dollars and it's distributed equally, or is it with that specific number that is on the back of the jersey that's attached to each individual athlete? That to me is the biggest question in all of this. Is this a pot that goes into a school, or is this by the athlete where it's going to be disproportionate and a guy like J-Dub would be getting pennies on the dollar?
And that's why I kind of brought that up earlier, because I remember my first media day at when I was at Grove Stadium, and this kid came up, wanted me to sign his calendar. I'm like, are you sure? I'm an offensive lineman. Are you sure you want me to sign that? And, and no one's going to ever buy my autograph. So if you have a person on the team back then we had, I had 3 or 4 from my sophomore team actually go to the pros. That they're actually making money now, and that would be disproportionate. I'd be sitting here getting nothing while someone else got millions of dollars. So I think I understand that I'm not a star. I understand that was not why I was there. I was there to get my education and play football as a secondary thing. But I agree with Nelson. The language matters, and you don't want to alienate half your team, because think about it. We had 150, 160 people in the Wake Forest team, including the travel squad. And you had the money guys, and you had the support staff. I was support staff. I understand that. So I think that's where we just got to figure out what's going on.
But the way I would see that it would play out, maybe I'm just being naive and thinking this way, is that you're talking about for a team for a video game, for example, that's a blanket thing. You're buying the rights to use the 2014 Wake Forest Demon Deacons, and that means everybody on the roster gets paid a cut from that. Jerseys are a different thing. Posters are a different thing. Other thing, commercials, whatever, that's all different stuff. But you're talking about for a base thing, a group thing like that. Yeah, and there's going to be, sure, not everybody's going to be able to make the same amount of money. There's no way to do that. There's not a universe where you could accommodate that. But why shouldn't anybody who is being utilized? It's the same reason if you're in a movie, even if you don't have a huge role.
Oh, I know. You still get that royalty check of $2.37 every quarter. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree with you, Phil. If you use, most people that would be making money in this situation are probably going to be scholarship athletes anyway, which means they can't make money anywhere else. So, I mean, I agree that it needs to be happening. But I think, Phil, to Nelson's point, the language has to be indicative and has to be representative of that.
Yeah.
And I just think
spelled out.
Yeah. As long as it's spelled out to where it's fair, then I'm fine with that. It's just that there's such a huge disparity between the stars and the non-stars out there that if I got my royalty check at $2.34 because of video game likeness, I'd probably be darn happy to get it. But yeah, the language just has to be fair and protective of all athletes, not just the superstars.
Yes, absolutely. And before we wrap up here on the show, I want to talk about one last topic. And that's something that happened this past week. Unless you really were paying close attention, you may have missed it. And that's National Signing Day. And the question of the floor, and I posed this when I told the guys what I wanted to talk about today for the show. Has National Signing Day been eclipsed by the early signing period?
Okay, so basically what we're looking at now is and we talked about it for those that watched our signing day special over at GPB Sports with Matt Stewart and myself, and we were talking about it. Matt came up with the best analogy that I could think of. Matt referred to the December signing day, the early signing day, as basically new Coke, whereas what we're having in February is now Coke Classic. And so the idea of National Signing Day Classic being usurped now by the early signing day by New Coke. This is that one instance where New Coke is actually a positive as opposed to what it was.
Yeah, I was going to say, they would, if that was the case, they would have canceled early signing day a while ago.
Yeah, but no, I think that when you have 70% of the top 300, regardless of which service you look at, 70% of the top 300, most of the 5 stars and most of the 4 stars are gone by early signing day, by the end of the calendar year. When you come into Signing Day Classic, in the state of Georgia, you were looking at 1 4-star and a lot of 3 stars. But once again, I will always remind folks that J.J. Watt was a 2-star. And you saw what J.J. Watt has turned into as a college player and now as a pro. So has it usurped it by number? Yes. But I think that when it comes to institutions that have to wait or didn't get everybody that they were looking at, this is the chance for your athletic department and all the guys that are attached to your recruiting.
Yep.
This is where you make your hay. It's from all of the athletes that you're looking at to fill positions of need and depth, and guys that might have slipped through the cracks for one reason or another, test scores, grades, what have you, that are now eligible. This is where a lot of programs can make some serious inroads by paying attention to the landscape and having the traditional signing day still be meaningful for them, while all of the bulk and all the star power ends up going to early signing day, J-Dub, in December.
Yeah, because you think about the teams like Alabama. Alabama landed 7 5-star recruits, right?
15 of the top 90 recruits in the country.
And 4 SEC teams landed the top 70 players who were previously uncommitted on signing day. So there are some big splashes on the early signing day. The people who enroll early, like when Tennessee nabbed Harrison Bailey, enrolled, and these types, we're often very familiar with Harrison Bailey.
Yes, we are.
And I still, as an athlete, as a former athlete and a former coach, I still watch National Signing Day. I thought that analogy of New Coke and Coke Classic is perfect. Coke Classic is still Coke, and New Coke, it's okay, at a pinch. But you're going to have the same big splashes on National Signing Day. I don't think early signing day has replaced it. I think it's just another addition to it. And I agree with Nelson. These schools haven't made their commitments. Maybe there's some people that are still working on. This gives them that extra bit of time to sign them. But yeah, I cannot believe that the Tide signed 7 5-stars. But we know about how that works. How many 5-stars has Georgia recruited and have got nothing to show for it? So, it's all how you use the recruits. But I agree. J.J. Watt was a 2-star. We can't forget that.
Yeah, the people who chart such things and apply numbers to such things say that Alabama had the highest ranked recruiting class in the history of recruiting. With the 7 5-star guys, the 16 4-star guys, which is kind of absurd.
Wait, color me shocked.
And then the other 3 top SEC schools were Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Kentucky. Those 4 teams landed the top 70 players who are uncommitted in signing day.
Okay, so I found my show notes just before we go, just to give you an idea. For those folks who are playing in the Roman numeral classic, just to give you an idea. 5 stars. Leonard Fournette, Chris Jones, Sammy Watkins, Mecole Hardman, William Golston. 4 stars. Gronk, Ndamukong Suh, Devin White, and the Honey Badger. 3 stars. Pat Mahomes, Mike Evans, Frank the Tank. So basically 3 stars going to college were Pat Mahomes, the Cyborg, and Frank the Tank. They were 3 stars. 2 stars, Travis Kelce, Jason Pierre-Paul. No stars, Shaq Barrett, Mike Remmers, Ryan Jensen. 3 of the Bucs starting offensive linemen were no stars. And Tyreek Hill out of Kansas City, who went to a junior college and was a no-star when he went to college. So that's what you're looking at when you're talking about stars and star power in the Roman numeral classic.
Yeah, I mean, I could get off on a whole other topic about what I think about all that stuff.
I mean, the point is, I've got a friend that's a Georgia fan. Believe it or not, I do have friends that like the Bulldogs. All I hear about all these 5-stars we recruited, I'm like, what do you got to show for it, bro? I mean, it's not where your recruit is, because look at Jarrett Guarantano, 4-star dual.
Do we have to look at Jarrett Guarantano?
I'm glad I don't have to anymore. But he was a bust, and you got to think about how they're used and how they're utilized.
He's also the Freddie Kitchens of current day college football, in that he's like in his 9th year.
Yes, that is true.
Yep.
But yeah, you're right. You could assign somebody a star rating and say this guy's going to be this, that, or the other. But really, until you get an 18 or a 19-year-old kid away from home for the first time and put him on a college campus with a coach breathing down his neck and competing against a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds and 20 and 21-year-olds who are maybe bigger, faster, stronger, and have a better grasp of the game, until you see how that kid reacts to that, you're making a best guess. You don't really know. Not every 18-year-old can walk onto a college campus and not be awed by it, and not be like, whoa, wow, this guy can keep up with me. It's a challenge.
And speaking of challenges, you can't, look at somebody like a Shane Beamer. It's just hired 2 weeks before early signing day at South Carolina. Ends up not getting not a single 4 or 5-star recruit. Only had 1 3-star recruit. I think he ranked 77th nationally. But I mean, It's the lowest SEC ranking recruiting class since 2005. So I don't think it has anything to do with Shane, but interesting to see, just because you don't get a 4 or 5-star recruit doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. May not be successful tomorrow, but I mean, there's still, something to be done in Columbia. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. The lowest ranked class since 2005.
I'll drop this one on you guys here before we wrap things up here on the second half of the review. And we talk about all these stars and all these recruiting classes. I'll have you know that Texas State this year did not sign anybody.
I know.
Yep.
They went the junior college route, and everybody that came in this class is a junior college player. None of them are high school players.
Well, and we've seen that in the past with Kansas State and Bill Snyder, where you bring in a quarterback like a Michael Bishop, and you end up going to bowl games and turning things around rather quickly. And I think that that's what they're looking at in San Marcos with Texas State, because of just how they have just not been a very good Fun Belt football team the last handful of years. And you want to turn things around quickly, you do it the JUCO route.
Yep, because there's some really legit JUCO talent out there, and I maybe Jake Spavital knows what he's doing with the Bobcats, but we'll see. I mean, what are you going to do when you know you're not going to get a major recruit? Then why not go JUCO route?
I mean, why not zig when everybody else is zagging? I get it. What do you got to lose?
Yeah, your job.
Well, that goes for anybody in college football pretty much every season. That risk is always out there. Guys, you got anything else you want to add here before I wrap things up?
Nope. Good to be back. Good to see everybody. Happy New Year. Glad that we're off and running here in 2021, and we are less than 200 days before toe meets leather for a football season.
Can't get here soon enough. Of course, I get North Carolina high school football here in a week, so I'll have something to keep my Jones going.
Yeah, we do have smaller division college football too.
NAIA started this past week, as a matter of fact. Had a handful of games, and they're going full bore. And FCS, I think, starts later this month, as a matter of fact.
Yep, late, I think third week of February.
Yeah, I saw a little interesting statistic on Twitter this morning that touchdowns scored in February of 2021, Reinhardt 1, Alabama 0.
Correct.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and wrap things up. I've got things to do. We've still got some moving to go, and it's a Super Bowl kind of a weekend.
I've heard.
Yeah, there's a game today? Yeah, I didn't know.
For OSG Nelson and OSG J-Dub, I am OSG Phil. We are the online sports guys, and you have been listening to the review. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great week, and we will catch you again in 2 weeks. Have a good one. Bye-bye.